The next machine we're going to talk about in our rental fleet is the chainsaw that we rent. Regardless of the size of the chainsaw, the starting procedure will be essentially the same. We want to make sure that we go over how to start it and how to be safe with the operation with every customer that we send it out with. So for this machine, we have mix oil and gas in here, 50-to-1 mix ratio, or just your regular Opti, 2 pumps for 1 gallon, which is what we always use in our shops. Up here we have the bar oil. What you can use is the silver premium, otherwise you can use the orange for the summer and blue for in the winter. We always want to make sure that both of these are full of oil and full of gas before we send it out with the customer. And then every customer also gets an extra tank of gas to go with it, and so in case they need to refill. With a chainsaw, you can run for a very long time on 1 tank of gas, so they shouldn't run through an entire gallon of it throughout that day. Some of the features that we want to talk about is how to tighten the chain. So first you have to loosen up these 2 bar nuts on the steel chainsaw. Then down in here you stick your flathead screwdriver in there to tighten it up. You want the chain to be about this tight, where it's kind of hard to pull it all the way out, and it's not so loose that it's just hanging. So you want it to be to where the drive links are about coming out. Now remember to remind the customer that as they're using it, the chain will warm up and expand. And so the chain will have to be retightened throughout the course of using this. And then as soon as they're done using it, at the end of the day, they want to loosen it so that as the chain cools off, it doesn't contrast too much and warp the bar. You also want to remind the customer that when they're using the chainsaw, they know they need to either sharpen, replace, or bring the saw back in when the chainsaw is no longer cutting out wood chips. As soon as those wood chips start to become smaller and smaller, then we need to resharpen the chain. If they are starting to send out sawdust, then it's basically we have to replace the chain. Other safety features on the chainsaw is the chain brake. Push it all the way forward to engage the chain brake, and that stops the chain from moving. Pull it back, and that allows us to spin the chain. So the starting procedure that we are going to run the customer through is showing them that we are full of gas and oil, turning the chain brake on, and explaining to them that the proper 2 positions for starting the chainsaw are either 1 between your legs like this, or on the floor with your foot on the handle and your hand down here. So with the chain brake engaged, we pull in the trigger, push the button all the way down, and release the trigger. This is our cold start. That's the warm start position. We will pull the cord on the cold start position until it tries to fire over. Once it fires over 1 time, we move it back up to the warm start position. We then pull it over again and it will start. Once it's started, pull in the trigger to bring it to the idle position, and the chainsaw is running. When the customer is ready to use it, they pull back on the chain brake to disengage the brake, and then they pull the trigger as normal, and they can start cutting the tree. Things to remind them of is they want to wear safety glasses, chaps, closed-toed boots, things like that, so that they don't have any sort of accidents that hurt them. And remind them when they're moving from cut to cut, be turning on and off that chain brake to preserve so that they don't accidentally engage the trigger. So we're going to go ahead and fire it up, and I'll show you how we do that. So chain brake is on, pulling in the trigger all the way down. I personally prefer to start it on the floor. It's a little bit easier. I pull it over. It fired over once, so I'm going to move it up to the warm run position. Pull in the throttle so that it's noise. Pull in the chain brake. all the way up is how we turn it off. Again, we want to start the machine for the customer before they take it off, walk them through all the safety procedures. When they come back to check it back in, we fire up the machine again, run it through its functions so that we know that there's nothing wrong with the machine and it's ready to go out again the next time.